Welcome back to Book Talk, everyone. I am so excited today to have my friend Susan Tuttle back. And y'all have probably seen at least one episode with her. She's been here a couple of times, but today we are here to talk about her latest book, The Hidden Key of Brooke Sumner. And y'all, I endorsed this book.
I know. Thank you.
It was so good. I have loved this series, but this book is so good. But before we dive into all of that, Susan, do you want to take just a moment for those watchers and listeners who may not have been exposed to you before and just quickly introduce yourself?
So I'm Susan Tuttle, and I have been writing for several years. Actually, I've been writing pretty much my whole life, but published for a few years now. And I live here in Michigan. Mom, who is a empty nester. Two of my three are now married. One is in school full time, and I have a lovely puppy dog who stays home with me. It's a new season of life for me, but just enjoying the writing and write clean romance, clean contemporary romance. With these last few books, I've had a touch of history in it because I love history, but I'm
Mhm.
not a historical writer at all. So I get to play with adding a little bit of history into the contemporary setting, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and your this last series has been such a fun blend of romance and that nod to history, and then a little bit of a caper feel to
Yeah,
it, but
yeah.
not like over the top because it's not suspense and it's mystery, but it's fun. But then this book, The Hidden Key of Brooke Sumner, I always want to say Summer. That's why I have to
I
stop
know, it's so
saying
close.
Sumner, like, and it's so much fun because she's the character. And for those of you who haven't read the first two, you don't have to worry about it. Each of these stand alone really pretty nicely. But if you've read them all, you're going to have this nice sequence, but you can just jump in with book three. It's not a big deal. But with Brooke, she's just a little standoffish.
She's a lot standoffish. And you see that in book one and two. So if you've read book one and two, you know going into it that she is. But you get from page one, you get that she's a little standoffish. But her background is, she came out of foster care, and so she's had a lot of I don't like the word baggage, but it's shaped her. It's definitely
Mhm.
shaped her.
That's a great way
Um,
to phrase it.
yeah, and as life does. I mean, our past shapes us, and she is someone she's a secret softie. Like, she's got a very soft
Mhm.
side. And she wants to belong, but she's scared to put herself out there again. So she kind of has that shell on her a little bit, because it's easier to put a shell on than to make yourself vulnerable and feel like you're not enough again. Because a lot of people in her life have told her that she's almost too much in some ways. And she kind of
Yeah.
has carried that with her. And so she's put up some walls, but they will be broken down finally in this book. So.
Yeah, I love that because there are these flashes that there's so much more to her than this like facade that she has. And I think it resonated with me because people are always like, "Oh, you're so professional, you're so put together." And I'm like, "But there's so much more to me than what you're seeing." But if that's what you expect, then yeah, I'll give you what you expect because I've got this professional Cara, I've got this writer Cara, and I'm like, "But who wants to know what's going on inside me, Cara?" And so I could so relate to those kind of elements of her. And this book has, from the title on, you've got this concept of the key. So is
Mhm.
that a metaphor? Was it a theme that you knew from the beginning, or was it something that came to you as you were writing? How did that kind of come about?
It's funny. It's kind of always been there. And it was kind of a blend both of unlocking parts of Brooke would be happening in this book, but also there's a legitimate key that they're looking for. And I knew all along there was going to be this element of this physical key that they were looking for. I didn't know quite how much was going to play into Brooke's actual journey herself. So,
Yeah, and you've got this, like we were talking about, this mystery where they're hunting for something, and
yeah,
that's part of the fun. And they're hunting all over, which is part
yeah.
of what I love about this series, is it's not just in one little location, but they're literally all over the world. Um, and so, as you think about this particular book, The Hidden Key of Brooke Sumner, what was the hardest clue to lay down without being like, I'm going to be giving everything away? Because that foreshadowing and red herring-ing is
Yeah,
tough.
it is. Really, it was just it was connecting them all. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in this book on multiple layers, and I guess I approached it very much in a way of not necessarily purposely trying to hide things from readers, but going, okay, what does my character actually know at this point? Because a reader can't know it if my character doesn't know it. Um, and what do I, as the author, know? So, what little Easter eggs can I put in? But what can I preserve and go if we're really only in her point of view? Um, and honestly, a lot of the clues just kind of organically happened. I had the chance to visit Rome before I wrote this book, and I stumbled across this little art museum in the middle of a park in Rome,
Mhm.
and ended up finding bits and pieces that were like, I could use this in the story.
Mhm.
And as I came home and researched more about this art museum, everything kind of from there went worked backwards for me to the original clues that I started to give out. So I feel like when I'm writing, like God is laying little nuggets for me along the way, and I just get to follow them, and then I get to unravel them for the reader.
Okay, so we have to take a pause right there. Rome, Rome, one of my
Yes,
favorites.
I
What
know.
was your favorite part of Rome?
The just being there in the city, like the architecture, the history, because like I said, I love history. And so getting to see all of these places like Trevi Fountain, which we go to, and
Mhm.
like oh, not the Colosseum, that's Athens, the Parthenon, and getting to walk in places that, we visited some of the where they thought Paul was in prison. And so some of this stuff made its way into the book, some of it didn't. But I loved just walking the streets. I loved the food. I'm not gonna lie.
Ah,
I love the
yeah.
food. Love the food.
Yeah. My
Like,
daughter always has like a gelato jar that she throws her money in for
yes,
like the whole year before we go. And she's like, this is my gelato jar. And then my other kids are like, but mom's just going to buy you gelato every day anyway.
you could just save it for your extra. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. They had amazing food. And so just walking the streets, getting to go to the Colosseum, getting to go to the places that you read about in the Bible, but also just have historically written, and just knowing that how many hundreds of years that city has been there
Yeah.
and you're walking those same footsteps. It's just, as somebody who loves history, it was just the entire city was a treat.
Yeah, it's incredible. And this summer, I got to take my parents and one of my brothers and his family there. And so seeing Rome and other parts of Italy through their eyes, after I've spent parts of 4 summers there with study abroad, it was just so much fun to re-see it
Yeah,
again for the first time and be like, oh, I love it even more. I love it even
I can
more.
imagine.
So this book has all the mystery and the
Mhm.
chasing down of the clues, but it also has romance. So how did you balance the two different threads?
They really worked well together, especially in this book, because, well, first of all, I'm always going to write romance. I love, love, love romance. It's probably my favorite aspect. And because Brooke and Storm have a history, and he ends up tangled up in this group. So there's this group of it's a team of these three girls that have Brooke Everly and Natalie, who have kind of just been going after something in every book. They are pursuing something, and he gets tangled up in this group. And there's been an issue in Brooke and Storm's past that has caused distrust and a sense of betrayal on Brooke's side. And so when she hears that he's going to join this team that she was thinking of stepping off of and he's going to join in her place, she's like, "Oh, no, no, no. I need to protect people from you because what if you betray them like you betrayed me?" Like her
Yeah.
is that he betrayed her. And so she steps in and so they're on this journey together and so they are pursuing answers to all of this mystery and these clues, which puts them in this forced proximity. So it really allowed them to work at her beginning to question, is my perception still correct? Am I reading everything that's happened between Storm and I
Yeah.
correctly? Like, he has been my dearest friend since childhood. We went through the foster care system together. And yes, there is this one thing that happened within the last couple of years that has caused me to question him and his loyalty to me, but maybe I don't have that all right. So really the mystery was a great tool to force her to re-examine some of the things that she has been thinking about Storm recently.
I love that. And it played out so beautifully on the page because there is this natural tension of, I've known him and now I believe something differently about him,
Mhm.
but why? And maybe I jumped too quickly
Yeah.
to that conclusion. And it was all done so well. So as you talk about like all this research you did and all these things that go into crafting a story like this where you're literally jumping all over the world and
Yeah.
globetrotting through your characters, was there a research rabbit hole that you went down that you were
Actually,
like, oh
yeah.
gosh,
So, really, when I first proposed this series, I had to have a generalized idea of what might happen in all three books and where we were heading as an overall story. And when I originally looked at Brooke's story, one of the mysteries that I loved is this mystery about a treasure called the Dutch Schultz treasure, and it's more set in America, and it's another mystery that completely intrigued me that I might use someday. And I had thought that that's what I was going to do. But I stumbled across this painting called The Just Judges, which was taken from I think it's called the Ghent altarpiece. I can never
mhm,
pronounce some of these words well, out of Belgium. And it's this panel of this picture that just was stolen, and nobody quite knows the story behind it, who took it. The person that they think took it on his deathbed claimed that he did, but there's a lot of questions about whether or not he did or not. And he's like, I'm going to take its location to my grave with me. And it just intrigued me the more I studied about this painting, about the mystery surrounding it, and then the location of where it was. And knowing that Brooke and Storm both loved antiques, but also Brooke loved art. And it just seemed like a better fit for the story the more I researched it. And so everything kind of shifted to that.
I love that. And so often research rabbit holes just kind of steal our time.
Yes.
And then every once in a while, you find that one that you're like, it just changes the whole story.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, no, this is why you do those research rabbit holes.
Exactly, exactly. And it's fun. It's so much, there are so many mysteries in history that haven't been answered, especially about things that are missing. And
Yeah,
so there are so many that you can just dive into this rabbit hole and just keep going.
absolutely. So, was there a moment in drafting this story where you were just like, I can't anymore. I've got to give up? Or were you like, nope, I got a deadline. I got to keep going?
It was definitely, I had a deadline and I had to keep going. This book actually I wrote in a season coming out of caring for aging parents, both who passed away. And I had a deadline that was about 2 months after my father passed away. And I hadn't had a chance because I was caring for him to really get into the story. I had just started it and had just kind of figured out all the pieces, but hadn't had a chance to sit down and write it. And I am a very slow writer. So to be coming off of saying goodbye to him and knowing I had about 6 to 8 weeks to hand this book in, and I've never really written a book that quickly. Um, there were plenty of times that I wanted to give up because there was a lot of like, I don't even know where I'm going next with this.
Mhm.
But I couldn't because I had a deadline. So, the Lord really supplied, as He always does, but even more
Yeah.
so in this with this book than He ever has before, where I would just sit down and be like, I have no idea today what I'm going to put down, but I have to put down something. And He just showed up with words. So,
Yeah. I love that because it's often in our weakness and in those moments where we're like, I got nothing. And he's like, great, I'm going to show up and I'm going to,
exactly.
and deadlines are marvelous things for that because
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I don't have a choice. I got to do this.
Yeah.
So when you think about the books you've written, because you've written a number now, this is what, number 7 or 8?
Yeah. Yeah.
How has your approach to writing, to characters, to theme, how has that shifted from like book one to
Yeah.
here? And you can't just say I went from romance to romance with mystery because that's too
Yeah.
easy.
No, no. I will say, so like I started out a true, real pantser. I would sit down with the first books that so the first books I wrote was another series, pure romance, nothing, and I knew the character names and a verse, and I just started writing. And so,
Wow.
which is fine when you're writing a book that you don't necessarily have a deadline on and that type of thing. The farther along I've gotten, I have really melded pantsing and plotting. And so I love the freedom to not know every single thing. I'm never going to be the one that has a complete outline of my story. I do like a little bit of that. Like, let's see where this story brings me while I'm writing and discovering. So my first draft is always discovery. But especially writing this current series, because there were so many elements and mystery and steps that had to be gone through for the characters and the plot, and it was a bit more intricate, there were certain beats that I had to know and I had to hit. So
Mhm.
I've definitely changed more into a more to the plotting side than the pantser, but there's still a pantser living within me. And characters, I love not knowing my characters when I start and discovering them as I go. So that part has still stayed the same. But the plot wise, I'm trying to add more to my plots, which is forcing me to plot
Mhm.
more. So,
Yeah. Well, and that's the wonderful thing about when you add like mystery or something like that to the story, it gives you that opportunity to just keep fleshing out characters
yes.
and add these layers and get the theme more embedded and all of that. It's so much fun.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm becoming more and more plot driven than character driven. When I started out, I was very character driven. And I have found along the way that I do love to have a more intricate plot. It's fun for me as a writer. And I've always loved mysteries and puzzle solving and stuff like that. I've always been kind of like intrigued by, National Treasure and Indiana Jones and Romancing the Stone, those type of things that have a little bit of that adventure, a little bit of that, like maybe treasure hunting a little bit, um, along with the romance. So I'm finding that fun to add in.
That's awesome. Okay, so here's a fun question.
Mhm.
At least I hope it's fun. If a book club was to read this book, what's one aspect you'd want them to discuss? Is there like a question that you're like, ooh, you should talk about this?
I think especially with Brooke's story, I would really it comes down to like what's shaping our perception? Not only our
Mhm.
perception of ourself, like how much does our past shape our perception of ourself, but also our perception of others. Where are we taking that? And if you have known someone for a long time, are you truly looking at their heart and giving them the benefit of the doubt? Or are you allowing one moment to define how you make decisions and how you are deciding about their character? And it's that believing the best in someone.
Yeah.
And I'm a real proponent of that, especially if you've known someone a long time. If something's not tracking, why is it not, and how are you handling that? And so I think, yeah, to me it was just, I think Brooke had so much to learn about herself, but also then how she was processing that and how she was applying it to others. So where are we getting our perception from?
I love that. That's such a rich question to dig
Yeah.
into. Okay, so now for the lightning round. What are three words to describe your book's vibe?
Oh, I would say adventurous and romantic. Um, And I would say playful in the sense
Mhm.
of Storm can be pretty, like some of the banter between him and Brooke, but also just Storm himself. I just always felt like there was just this almost a smirk in his eyes and this little bit of playfulness with him. So,
Yeah, because she's more serious, but he
yeah.
was not. He was just
No.
so much fun.
Yeah.
What's one trope that you embraced and maybe one that you kind of twisted up a little bit?
I would say the trope that kind of I embraced but also twisted, I would say is both the same. So I kind of took the Timur. So the enemies Timur, the friends Timur. Like
Yeah,
I love both of those. Those are both two of my favorites, but I kind of combined them because Brooke and Storm were friends who are trying to travel to Timor, who were almost to Timor when this misperception kind of split them. And now they have become these enemies in her mind, very much so.
yeah.
So it's kind of a mashup of the friends Timor and the enemies Timor played out on page. So
I love that because that's very much he's friends to more and she's
yeah,
enemies to more, and they're
yeah,
kind of meeting
exactly.
in the middle.
Yeah, yep, for sure.
If you were going to talk to readers and say, if you love this, then you will love
Yeah.
my book,
So
what would you say?
like I said, kind of going back to the movies that I've already a little bit referenced, but the National Treasure, Romancing the Stone, The Lost City, the newer one that
Yeah,
came out in the last few years with Sandra Bullock. So anything that has kind of that adventurous treasure hunting with that definitely that romance in it, you're gonna like. And the books I kind of liken it to is like Pepper Basham has The Mistletoe Countess, which is historical, but it's still kind of that pair that's going out and trying to solve a mystery together, and they've got the romance rolled in. So, and yeah, because it's a more lighthearted than it is. There's definitely some moments of drama, I guess you could say, within the book, but there's also just a lightheartedness to it too.
I love that. And do you, for the last one, do you have a favorite line or favorite scene?
Oh goodness. I think one of my favorites, I have a couple, but I think one of my favorite scenes is the first moment where we really see Brooke break and that she still cares for Storm. And it's when they arrive in London and he has a moment. So Storm is a diabetic and he has a moment where his blood sugar is kind of crashing because he didn't take care of himself. And she sees it in him right away. And she just steps in, even though she doesn't want him along for this ride. She's not happy that he's there. She doesn't really want to be talking to him or trust him. There's still a part of her that, like I said, there's that soft part of her that's in there. And you get a glimpse of that, of her, of going, this is
Yeah.
still my friend. Like deep down, we're still connected. He's still my friend. I'm still concerned about him. And she kind of briskly steps in to take care of him. And there's just a really some good dialogue that happens between them in that moment.
Yeah, it's such a good scene. I love that. Well, where can readers connect with you and learn more about The Hidden Key of Brooke Sumner and all your other books, Susan?
Yeah, so the social media site I'm most active on is Instagram. You want to make sure whenever you're looking me up, you use my middle initial because there's other Susan Tuttles out there. So Susan L. Tuttle, and that's the handle I use both for my website. So you can look me up, susanltuttle.com. And on there, you'll see all my books. You'll get a sneak peek of book one, so you can jump into book one if you want to, but you'll see all of my books listed there. And then on Instagram, I'm always updating things. That's where I interact most with people. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
you have such a fun presence on there. It's awesome.
it's a fun place
Well,
to be.
thanks so much for joining me. And I loved this book. It was so easy to endorse The Hidden Key of Brooke Sumner
I
because it
hope
was just such
that.
a fun read and had such depth to it. I loved it.
Thank you. I enjoyed having you do it. That meant so much to me. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here and good luck with the book.
Thanks. We'll see you later.